One late evening in the early 1990s, a truck driver named Min was making his regular journey along the Hai Van Pass, a notoriously dangerous mountain road in central Vietnam. The pass was famous for its sharp turns, steep cliffs, and the mist that often blanketed the area, reducing visibility. Despite being an experienced driver, Min always felt a sense of unease whenever he crossed the Hai Van Pass, especially at night. There were many stories about strange occurrences, but he never believed in ghosts. On this particular night, Min was running behind schedule. He had left Da Nang late in the afternoon, delivering goods to a remote village on the other side of the pass. By the time he began his ascent, the sun had long set, and darkness had fully settled in. The only light came from his truck's headlights, illuminating the narrow, winding road ahead. As Min navigated the twists and turns of the mountain, he noticed that the fog was thicker than usual. It clung to his windshield, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. The wind howled through the trees, and the occasional sound of a distant animal broke the eerie silence. Min gripped the steering wheel tightly, focusing on the road. About halfway through the pass, as he approached a particularly sharp bend, something caught his eye. At the edge of the road, barely visible through the fog, stood a figure. Startled, Min slowed down and squinted through the windshield, trying to get a better look. It was a woman, standing alone on the side of the road, her long hair hanging down over her face, and she was dressed in a white ao dai. She was motionless, seemingly waiting for something. Min's heart raced. He had heard stories of people encountering strange figures along this road, but he had always brushed them off as superstitions. This, however, felt different. The woman looked real. His instincts told him to keep driving, but something about her presence compelled him to stop. Maybe she was in trouble, stranded in the middle of nowhere. He couldn't just leave her there. Min pulled the truck over to the side of the road and rolled down the passenger window. "Miss, do you need help?" he called out. The woman slowly turned her head towards him. Her face was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes seemed to hold an emptiness that made Min's skin crawl. Without saying a word, she pointed to the truck, as if asking for a ride. A cold shiver ran down Min's spine. He hesitated for a moment, but his sense of duty and compassion took over. "All right, get in," he said, unlocking the door. The woman moved silently towards the truck and climbed into the passenger seat. She sat there, her hands folded neatly in her lap, staring straight ahead. Min tried to make small talk to ease the tension. "Where are you headed?" he asked, glancing at her out of the corner of his eye. She remained silent, offering no response. The uneasy feeling in Min's gut grew stronger, but he didn't want to be rude. He focused on driving, hoping the ride would soon be over. The road twisted and turned, and the fog seemed to get thicker as they continued their descent down the mountain. After a few minutes, Min noticed something strange. The temperature inside the truck had dropped significantly. He could see his breath fogging up in the air, and the cold seemed to seep into his bones. He turned up the heater, but it made no difference. He glanced over at the woman again. She hadn't moved an inch since she got in. Her long hair still covered most of her face, but Min could now see that her hands were unnaturally pale, almost as white as her ao dai. A sense of dread filled him, and for the first time, Min considered the possibility that this woman wasn't human. Trying to shake off the fear, Min kept driving in silence. But the further they went, the stranger things became. The fog outside seemed to swirl in unnatural patterns, and the sound of the wind grew louder, almost like whispers. At one point, Min thought he heard faint crying coming from the back of the truck, but when he checked his rearview mirror, there was nothing there. Suddenly, the woman spoke. Her voice was soft, barely audible, and it sent a chill down Min's spine.
I used to live nearby.
I used to live nearby, but I never made it home.
Min's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His heart was pounding in his chest. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously. The woman slowly turned to face him, and Min's breath caught in his throat. Her eyes were hollow, dark voids that seemed to suck the light out of the truck. Her mouth twisted into a sorrowful smile.
I died here on this road.
At that moment, Min's truck engine sputtered, and the lights flickered. The air grew even colder, and the whispers outside turned into a deafening wail. Panic surged through Min. He pressed down on the accelerator, desperate to get away, but the truck struggled to move, as if something was holding it back. The woman's gaze never left him.
They never found my body.
She whispered.
I've been waiting for someone to take me home.
Min's mind raced, trying to comprehend what was happening. His body trembled with fear, but he forced himself to speak. Where is your home? He stammered. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she slowly lifted her hand and pointed ahead, towards the road.
It's just up ahead.
Min followed her finger, his eyes straining to see through the thick fog. In the distance, he saw a faint light, flickering like a lantern. As they approached, he realized it wasn't a house or a village. It was a small, weathered shrine, covered in vines and half hidden by the trees. Without thinking, Min pulled the truck to a stop in front of the shrine. The woman turned to him one last time.
Thank you.
She whispered, her voice filled with an eerie sadness. Before Min could react, she vanished. The passenger seat was empty, as if she had never been there. The cold that had filled the truck lifted, and the fog outside began to clear. Shaken and disoriented, Min sat in silence for a few moments, trying to process what had just happened. He glanced at the shrine, then quickly drove away, his heart pounding in his chest. It wasn't until later, after talking to the locals, that Min learned the truth. A young woman had died in a bus accident on the High Van Pass many years ago. Someone say her spirit still haunts the road, waiting for someone to help her find her way home.